Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is The Surge Effect, and I'm your host, Mike Surge. This podcast will be talking about anything and everything, life in general to current events and past events, and all things about this beautiful and wonderful world that we live in. And this podcast, well, it'll probably have an effect on you. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of The Surge Effect. Today's episode of The Surge Effect, we're going to be talking a little bit about Tommy Robinson, who was just arrested the other day. And who is he? And a little bit of what is he about. Before we get started, we've got two sponsors for today, obviously. First one is Love My Legs, Owen Sound, Grey Bruce. Click on the link below, head on over to their Facebook page, and look at all the different leggings that they have to offer. They are the only lifetime guarantee in the industry. Number two is he-shirts, she-shirts. Once again, click on the link below, head on over to their website, check out what they have to offer. They are more than just a t-shirt company. I also like to mention a couple of different items as well. I get stuff from Amazon, obviously. Most people do. First one is branch chain amino acids. This is Allmax. I get this all the time. It's great for hydration, especially in the summertime. And if you don't know what branch chain amino acids are, just Google it, check it out. There are a lot of good benefits to drinking it. Second one is right here, PodMic, the Rode PodMic. Check it out. Link below takes you right to it. Because it has a great sound, good for podcasting or blogging or whatever you want to do. Okay, so let's get into it. Hopefully this won't be a very long video. I'm going to show you hopefully a couple of minutes of each one. So this first clip here is this is from Rebel News. They're the ones that actually brought Tommy over, and I'll listen. The first couple minutes, you'll understand a little bit about them.
I never thought it could happen. Tommy Robinson is in Canada, and he's going on a speaking tour with Rebel News. Yesterday, Tommy Robinson arrived in Canada. Here's a video he filmed with our reporter Alexa Lavoie, who was there to greet him when he landed at Montreal's International Airport.
How are you? I'm in Canada, yeah? Where I didn't think I'd get into Canada. And I got in. I haven't even booked a hotel. I'm sorting out now. And I'm here and I want to see as many of you as possible. So I'm here with Rebel Media and I'm going to be in Calgary June 24th, Edmonton June 25th, Toronto June 30th. I'm looking forward to it. Do you know what? It might be the only time I'm ever allowed into Canada. Yeah? So let's make some noise. Let's make some noise. And it's at tommytour.ca. You can go on there, find out all the details, get your tickets. I want to see as many of you as possible. Let's go.
Well, I think that's great. And he's here for a couple of weeks. He's here because he has some scheduled podcast interviews to do. I'll let him announce those on his own timing. But he's got some time and he has teamed up with us. It's no surprise. We used to be the company he worked with. We're going to put on some speaking events across Canada. Calgary, then Edmonton, then Toronto. And I suppose there's a chance we could add a few more, but hopefully those locations are close enough to you that if you want to come, you can make it. To find out the details, including the exact dates and locations and prices, go to tommytour.ca. I'm excited about this, but I also realize that many Rebel News viewers who have joined us in the last few years, especially since the pandemic, may not know who Tommy Robinson is. He was a pretty big part of our show in 2018, 19, and even 2020. He actually worked for Rebel News. His story is interesting, but it's also hard to know the truth about Tommy Robinson. Who is he? I first tried to answer that question 10 years ago when I was at the Sun News Network. And if you Google him, and if you see what the search engines put as the first responses, if you read his Wikipedia page, you will be terrified of him. And in fact, I was. For example, I'm Jewish. I don't want to hang out with someone who hates Jews, who's anti-Semitic. I don't want to hang out with someone who hates other races either, by the way.
So, of course, the narrative for this is that he's like some far-right extremist and some kind of a crazy person. And so let's go back 10 years, and that was from Ezra Levant, of course, through the Owens Rebel News. So I'm going to play another. This is from 10 years ago.
They are notorious right-wing.
On this clip from Nightline. This is 10 years ago. Explain a little bit about what Tommy, how they label him 10 years ago.
Group accused of being violent racists who have taken to the streets to fight what they view as homegrown Islamic extremists. But what happens when their leader has a change of heart? ABC's Lama Hassan continues her fascinating and very personal journey.
We're inside the nerve center for one of the most feared groups in Britain. They call themselves the Infidels. They are a radical splinter group of the notorious English Defence League. We're here to find out if this is the future of the far-right movement, a movement that just lost its leader.
A lot of people calling me a sellout, calling me a coward.
In a bombshell announcement, Tommy Robinson, the founder of the English Defence League, and his top deputy publicly denounced their protest movement.
I have to do what I think's right. This is what I think's right.
Saying they could no longer control racist radicals in their midst.
So he can no longer control the racist radicals that are in the midst of course, you're going to find them everywhere. In every movement across the globe. But he started that 10 years ago, and I think that, 2014 is when he stepped down, and this is where he is now. This is another little clip I'm going to show you here. This one is of, he's just doing this is 9 years ago. So basically, a year after, he's in Oxford, and he's just doing a little talk here. So, show you a bit of this.
You talk about not feeling safe in your hometown. Well, I am from Rotherham, and we were shocked and disgusted by everything that happened. And it was hard enough living in a town that had to deal with that. But then the following weekend, the EDL and other members of the far right came to our town.
Where are you from, sorry?
I'm from Rotherham.
Rotherham, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and members of the groups from the far right, like the EDL, the BNP, came to our town, and we had to lock ourselves away in our houses, people who were Pakistani or Muslim, because they didn't feel safe in their town. 2 streets away from my house, the EDL, members of the EDL, and these groups were smashing shop windows and cars. My dad was assaulted because he was a Muslim taxi driver by men who identified themselves as members of these groups. And my question to you is that you talk about Muslim extremism, as you should, because it is a problem. I'm not denying that it is, but you don't mention attacks from members of the far right that attack other people, or members from the far right that go around thinking it's acceptable to physically harm others. You focus on Muslims, you place the onus on Muslims to speak out, which Muslims do speak out, and I think that they should, but you don't focus on these groups that do this. You don't talk about how these groups aren't representative of the EDL or other groups as a whole. I know that you've left the EDL now, but when you were a member, you didn't, and I just feel like there are tensions on both sides, and both sides should be held accountable, but
There are, but I think to compare... I think to compare groups on the far right with Islamist terrorism who wish to kill, murder, maim, and they are killing, they are murdering. There's no groups of EDL or groups of the far right picking up young Muslim girls and raping them. It's not happening, okay? I know it's disgusting and sick if your dad's been attacked. You're from Rotherham. The grooming case from Rotherham. A local councillor, Muslim, went to court and gave a character reference for the groomers. He gave a character reference. The ex-mayor, who's a Muslim, went to court and gave a character reference. After that court case, once those men were convicted for rape, disgusting, sickening crimes against kids. There was no outcry. I'm not trying to justify any of it. I'm just trying to. I remember looking at it and thinking, hold on, a counsellor who's gone to court and gave a character reference for a paedophile who's raped a kid, and he ain't lost his job. And yet, when you say I don't speak out, I actually hate the far right, the real far right, as we've seen, who the far right I see as the far right. And I think it's right to bracket every people who are critical of Islam as an ideology. It is right to condemn what you're saying is acts of violence against innocent Muslims.
So there he is, just talking a little bit to a group of people, of course, in Oxford, and gives you a bit of a different idea of what he's about, how he feels about certain things. And that was a year after he basically stepped down. Now here is another little clip I'm going to show you. This is Piers Morgan, and this is about 7 years ago, ballparkish. Piers Morgan, and whether you like the guy or whether you don't like the guy, he interrupts a lot, and he tries to push his view on people. And I'm not too keen on the guy, but anyway, this is what how this doesn't even give the guy a chance to speak or even to speak his mind and explain what he's trying to get across, explain his point, because that's what Piers Morgan does. He just constantly does that to people. But anyway, so I'm going to show you another video here. And this one here is a reporter goes to ask Tommy a question, and this is quite interesting because Tommy was charged for exactly what this reporter is just about to do. So I'll play this.
Mr. Leonard from ITV, Matthew Hudson. Funny I'm talking to you at some point.
Do you know, can I tell you something? Yeah. I face a contempt charge, yeah, for doing exactly what you just done to me now. Exactly identical what you just done to me.
Clearly I can't comment on that.
No, exactly. I'm being prosecuted by exactly what you've just done. I'm facing charges for it. That's insane. Because I was wondering if actually... Who's recorded that? You recorded this?
Yeah.
Just, I need this footage because this is actually one of my charges. One of my charges is that I shouldn't have gone up to the person who's on trial. I shouldn't have asked them one question.
Well,
all I asked them.
All I would say is that I've asked that question.
All I asked them was, how are you feeling about your sentence, which is what he's just asked me today.
No, I'm simply asking you whether you would speak to us.
Yeah, no,
which is a different question.
I'm facing prosecution I'm facing prosecution because I caused them anxiety because I had a camera.
Well, people, I apologise if I caused you any anxiety.
No, you didn't. You didn't.
But just question whether you will speak to us after the case or during the case.
No, I'm happy to speak to you. Yeah. I'm happy to speak to you now.
Okay, that's fine. Well,
you seen the video? Yeah, hold on for me. I'm just going to the mic. No problem.
So Tommy, he was up on charges for basically doing exactly what that gentleman just did from a reporter, from a journalist standpoint. He said, hey, can I ask you a question? Tommy did the same thing, and he got charged for doing the exact same thing. It's kind of weird when you think of it. Anyway, I'm going to show you one more video here, and it's going to show you several videos, just one right after another, and kind of gives you an idea of who Tommy is a little bit. So this is an interview. It's called Anything Goes. This guy's name's James English, who did this quick little interview. I won't play all of it, just some of it.
When you had all your Osmonds, threats to life, how were you treated in prison?
So the last case, I went to Belmarsh, so I've had some disastrous prison sentences. Where do we start? I lost my I was in Woodhill. I went to Woodhill for a mortgage fraud charge. So basically, when I started the English Defence League, this is what they do now with Tate. When I started the English Defence League, they come in. Yeah. When I say they come in, they close your accounts, Dad. Your bank accounts got closed, your business accounts, they went back 5 years on my mum, my dad, my whole family. Yeah, they went through everyone. And they were trying to find things to nick anyone on. So then they started raiding, nicking everyone. I got nicked on, they nicked my wife at the time, tax evasion. They tried me on tax evasion, I got not guilty. They nicked mortgage fraud. So basically, the story was that at the time, between me and my wife, we had 7 mortgages, all fully legit. Now, do you remember self-certification mortgages?
Yeah.
So they used to say if you put down a 20% deposit, you can then self-certify how much you earn. My wife's little brother had said, and he was an apprentice for my company, plumbing, said he earned 20,000 when he earned 12. So he got a fraudulent mortgage in their eyes. He bought a house. He done the house up. It was his first property, and then he sold it. Yeah. 4 years after, so the house is sold. The mortgage company paid back. 4 years later, they built all our doors off. I got 18 months for that. I got 18 months for him buying that house. And you know, so he bought the house for, say, 60 grand, yeah? Sells the house for bought the house for 80 grand, 20 grand deposit. Sells the house for 125 when it was all done up. The police hit me for £125,000 confiscation order. I had to pay him 125 grand. It's like, there was no crime. There was no financial loss to anyone, yeah? But at that time, so I'm in for a little paper offence. I get 18 months. And I end up in Wood Hill Prison. And I ended up...
So there you go. So people will probably mention, oh, he was in prison because he did mortgage fraud and blah, blah, blah. So he just explained basically what just transpired there for his mortgage fraud and why he was in prison for that. So I'm just going to show you another little clip. This is another a talk show. This is about a year ago called Voice Through Adversity. This is another couple of questions that were asked of Tommy, and here we go.
So do you think, looking back or sitting back and thinking of it, there should be another way where all this could be tackled or highlighted without putting everyone in the same basket?
Yeah, so there's only one thing I've said where anyone can pull up a negative thing I said, and it was a speech I gave where I said every single Muslim in the UK watching this, yeah, and it was at Tower Hamlets. I said you got away with maiming and killing on 7/7. If you harm or hurt any British citizens again in our country, you'll feel the full force of the English Defence League. That is a regret. That's probably the only regret I've said. And that's the only thing anyone can pull me on what I've said. And I said that. People have to understand. I was leader of a street protest movement. Our job was to put pressure on the Muslim community and the government. Yeah, I thought we'd march in our thousands, we'd wake them up from within. They'd end up turning on the radicals. They'd end up thinking this is your fault. And it caused like a revolution within their community. It didn't. And when I left the English Defence League in 2014, I actually left at that time and I said, I don't see a benefit, and I haven't done it since, of us marching through a Muslim area. I did, and I think that what happened with the English Defence League was needed at that moment in time in this country. Remember, we all talk about grooming now, yeah? It's not grooming, it's rape jihad, yeah? But we all talk about grooming. No one knew.
It's what?
It's a rape jihad. It's a religiously motivated attack of rape being used as a weapon against non-Muslim women in this country and children. And I say that.
Yeah, do you think that's a bit extreme to say that?
No, I'm only going by what they say. So Somalia, and where are we? Bristol. How far's Bristol from here? Just over the river?
30 miles.
Okay, so that in the Bristol case, he said it was his religious duty to do it. In the Bristol case, the Somali on trial said that. Don't
you think that's just a cop-out whilst being in court, though?
No. In the Newcastle case, they hung their country's flag over the top of her while they all one by one gang raped her. I go by the comments of what they say. Yeah, the comments of what they say. The girls are called kafar. I'm going to bury one of the girls that was murdered. He messaged the girl and the bloke the day before saying, "I'm going to bury that kafar bitch." What is a kafar? It's like saying the N-word. It's the most derogatory term you can use. What is the reason these men are raping in the way they're raping? I just go through their comments.
So what he's saying, I go through their comments, is because this is what was said in the court cases. These aren't his words. This is the people that went to court because of these charges. There's their words.
Go through their comments from each case, which I go through. Yeah? In my episodes I'm doing now, I ask each victim, did they call you anything? I was called a gura. Gura is a white slag. Yeah? Every single case, everyone, there's not one that isn't, they make racial comments. Now, if white men were raping non-white children and they were making comments, whether it be you, Pakistani, or whether it be that using the P word or using the M word, yeah? Whether it be that, then everyone would say this is a racial crime. Now, we have hate crimes in the UK. Yeah? People are getting done for a hate crime for saying something homophobic, something transphobic. These men are raping kids whilst calling them racial terms.
So that's another just an interview with Tommy and stuff that he's talking about with this interviewer. Like I said, you can kind of pick up some of the things that he's trying to explain to people to kind of give his point of view of what he believes, right? I'm not agreeing. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just throwing this stuff out there so you can kind of make up your own mind. Leave some comments below what you think. Good, bad, ugly. It is what it is. But these are little clips you probably would not see on mainstream media, and you wouldn't find unless you were looking for them on your own. So this has just happened in England recently, about 7-8 months ago. I'll just play it, and this is where he's getting arrested for being at an anti-Semitic rally, and he was supporting the Jews. He was supporting the Jewish community in England.
That's Tommy Robinson. There's
Bring them home! Bring them home! Bring them home!
So that was part of a clip of him getting arrested during that, and I'm going to play it's the same time frame. It's of all the police officers arresting him, and just you can hear some of the stuff in the background. So they're basically saying that him being there was going to create a scene, and people were going to get, up in arms and everything else just because he was literally there, which is kind of silly when you think about it. Just to him being there, his presence, he's just supporting the anti-Semitic stuff that was going on in England at the time. So here's another little video of a military officer and his view on Tommy Robinson, which happened, there was a march in England, and that's what he has to say.
A few words about this march that's going on today in London with Tommy Robinson leading some British men and women from Victoria Station down to Parliament, where he's going to show a film for an hour and a half. Apparently he's been in talks with the Metropolitan Police to work out how to do that. There's counter-protest to it as well. As a British guy, I wish I could be there. I couldn't be there. I picked up on it really late, unfortunately. I'm a bit ashamed that I'm not there. I'll make sure I'm down for the next one. And the reason I say this is that if you live in this country and you believe in this country, then we need to attend these marches as protests, and we need to be civil. I think Tommy Robinson has called for people to be civil. This is the thing that the authorities really don't want. They want disorder. They want to be able to point at people and go, look at the far right. It's not the far right, it's just average guys like myself who are very concerned about the levels of immigration coming into the United Kingdom. Yesterday there was an attack in Mannheim in Germany where I think a politician who led small parties, 58-year-old author called Michael Sturzenberger, I think it was, was stabbed and violently assaulted by a young Afghan man with a knife. You've probably seen that on social media. The BBC is calling him a far-right activist, and of course they are, all this kind of stuff. And I'm assuming he might, I don't know, because everything's far-right. And when everything's far-right, it's like calling Tommy Robinson's far-right. When everything becomes far-right or everything becomes racist, then nothing is. It loses its meaning. And this is why when I got called those names, it doesn't apply to me. I just don't see any point in it. So I kind of respect what people are doing in London today, and I wish people all the best. I genuinely do. I've got people that have written to me from all over the British Isles, Northern Ireland, even the Republic of Ireland. People are coming over. People are coming over from mainland Europe as well, coming down from Scotland, Wales. The Welsh are on buses apparently going across. Top lads. I lived in Wales for a decade. My father was Welsh. I lived in Scotland for 5 years. You know what I mean? I've flown fast jets over Northern Ireland. I have done that. And I think it's brilliant how people are coming together. And then you've got, of course, it's taking place in London, which I would argue used to be the capital of England and is no longer is. And it's about immigration, the levels of immigration. But I think it's more about the way that, I think Liz Truss, when she spoke to Conor Tomlinson recently from Lotus Eaters, she actually said, former Prime Minister, she actually said that there's like evil in our government, and it's not the government as such, it's in the back ends of it. It's the civil service. It's been infiltrated by what do you call them? I suppose you have to say they're socialist in origin, or they're most definitely on the left. Understandably so, because these jobs tend to attract, the public sector tends to attract people who have more left-leaning views. The real danger with this, though, is that the government no longer has a say in how it runs the country. Everything's stemmed from the Blair years, Supreme Court. I mean, there's so much, and Liz Truss goes through that. It's very interesting. So I think what Tommy Robinson's doing today is trying to say, look, we're making a stand. That's all it is. We don't agree that the big issue is whether you enjoy the levels of immigration or not. No one was asked about it. And I think the conversation just has to come out of that. It's like, okay, so we've got high levels of immigration. I remember when David Cameron came in, he said immigration will be in the tens of thousands. It's now in the hundreds of thousands. I think it was 700,000 last year. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to be a bit of a moderate on this, guys, because I am. I understand that if we want to service pensions in the future and we're not having children, we'll get it. Yes, I'm sure immigration has to come in. And of course, we can bring in a lot of talent from overseas. It doesn't seem to be.
So that's his a little bit of a take. It's a fairly long video. I don't want to play all of it, obviously, because it's I don't want to have a huge, long podcast. But anyway, that in a nutshell, what he was saying about immigration, of course, in England. And then this last video or so is basically kind of come full circle again, because here is Tommy just the other day getting arrested after speaking in Calgary to a sold-out crowd about freedom and freedom of speech and about just people's freedoms in general. So here's him getting arrested.
How's your luck? Hey, you got 190. Here, what about my stuff? What about my stuff? My stuff. Absolutely. For an outstanding warrant. Yeah, for an outstanding immigration warrant.
They should just get an outstanding immigration warrant, but he's already been in Canada for like 8 or 9 days at this point. Why didn't they catch him when he actually came through customs? Why didn't that happen? Why did it happen when he was in Montreal for several days? And then why didn't it happen when he went to Calgary? And why didn't it happen, literally before he went on to speak to everyone at the crowd? But see, he had other dates that were set up at the start of this video. It was shown that he was supposed to go to Toronto and he was supposed to also go to Edmonton, but they arrested him after that and said he was gridlocked right in Calgary and wasn't able to go anywhere else. So there you go.
Yeah. Love you, buddy. I'm gonna put these in front of you. Yeah, you can trip me in the Thank you. So, wait. Calgary's fine. Justin Trudeau. Johnny, did they tell you what you're being arrested for? I've got an outstanding warrant. Okay, thank you. I can't sit down. My hands gone. Where can I go to help him get a lawyer and get bail?
He'll have access to a lawyer.
Which police? APU. He'll be going downtown to APU.
There's Israel Levant trying to ask a simple question. Where's he going?
Which precinct? APU downtown. Where can I go to help?
Isn't that something? And they won't even tell him. The people in the background are actually saying, "Oh, you got to go. They'll take him here, and you got to go there." It's just wild how this is occurring here in Canada, obviously. So here is the Faulkner show, and he was being interviewed, asked a few questions, and it's going to be the end of this podcast. My podcast day after, I'll play a little bit of this here.
What your government done to legal, lawful protesters with the truckers. We saw them implement, and it's now been proven. If you leave it to your government, it's been proven what they've done by enforcing the Emergency Act was unlawful. Yeah. So if you leave these same people in control of deciding who can speak, when they can speak, who's allowed a platform, then you're giving away your rights and your freedoms. And that's what this attack on freedom of speech isn't happening in Canada, just Canada. It isn't happening in Great Britain. This is an entire attack on the West. And the purpose for it, as they're changing the demographics of all of our countries at an uncontrollable rate, they're making us feel like foreigners in our own towns and cities. They don't want you to be able to speak about it. And not just they don't want you to be able to speak about it, they want you to feel like you're a fringe voice, when in reality, you're not. Our views are mainstream. The majority of Canadians are against mass open border, undocumented, illegal immigration. The majority of the great British public are. The majority of Canadians will be against the sexualisation of children and the enforcement and indoctrination in school children with transgenderism and different ideologies. The majority. But they wish to push these and they wish to prevent you being able to discuss any of these opinions through their new hate crime legislation, and also their groups like the Canadian Anti-Hate Network or whatever they call themselves, Hope Not Hate. These groups whose job it is to attack us. But unfortunately, I feel they're losing the battle. I feel the public are becoming more awake, which is it's an unfortunate state of affairs. They're becoming more awake because they're realising just how bad the problem is. Our countries are in a dire situation. We're in danger, okay, of losing control, of losing our actual identity. The identity of what makes Canada, Canada. The identity of British culture is disappearing. Do you know, as a Canadian, you sit and think of Great Britain. Many Canadians will have this view of London and what London's like. Well, it's changed. It's not like that anymore, okay? It's disappearing. It's not for the good. Freedom is not excelling, it's declining, okay? Safety is not got any better, it's getting worse. And we need to be, and the most important weapon we have to combat this is freedom of speech. That's why it's the first thing they have to take.
Absolutely. And freedom of speech. That's why it's the first thing they want to take. Wow. So that's it in a nutshell for this podcast, everybody. It goes without saying, like I said, whether you like the guy, whether you don't like the guy, please comment below and let me know what you think. Whether you like the guy, whether you don't like the guy, if he's right, if he's wrong, some of the points that he made, do they kind of hit home? Do you think about that in this country? Do you think about it in England? And do you think about it in, Australia or any other country that has had the same situations? Like I said, leave your comments below and let me know what you think. With that being said, everyone, that's the end of this podcast. And until next podcast, cheers, everyone. And remember, don't look back because there's nothing back there waiting for you. Keep moving forward. Till next time, everyone. Cheers. Episode sponsored by He Shirts, She Shirts. Go to www.heshirtssheshirts.ca. Just type in the letters TSA, The Surge Effect. When you check out, type in TSA for your coupon and receive 10% off your next purchase. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, everybody.